Okay.
Okay, good. So, hello everybody. Today we will talk about communication and tools and tips related to this topic. Just a second. Yes. So our agenda for today is first we're going to go over online communication tools, then how to effectively communicate and how you can improve team communication, the communication styles altogether, and also some tips from us and more information about the practical phase. Okay, so first of all, these are the these are the tools that we usually use in Xculture. So the first one is email. Email is a good way for official communication. You must probably already got used to get emails from Xculture. Please pay attention. Most of your test links and even certificates later will be shared over email. But we don't actually recommend you to use email as your main communication channel because it takes time and there can be conflicting versions of different documents. So instead, you can use Telegram, WhatsApp, Facebook groups, whatever your team chooses. Or there's even like a more professional tool for teams to communicate if you are familiar with it or if you want to try it out. It's called Slack. You can see the logo in the bottom right corner. And as for the other four remaining tools on this slide, they are namely Dropbox. It's a very useful tool to share your documents or drafts all together. For the same purpose, you can also use Google Drive. And you also must be already read more information on these tools this week. So these two are very useful and mostly will be used by teams during your practical phase. And something that you might have already know very well, it's Zoom. You all have like the free version available to yourself. You can have meetings up to 40 minutes. And one trick, because of the new limitations of Zoom, if one meeting ends, then the person cannot send a new link for 10 minutes, but you can ask another teammate if you still did not manage to finish your meeting. So that can be overcome in that way. And also about meetings, we have a really nice tool called Doodle. You can schedule meetings and it will show the time slots that you chose in everyone's own time zone. So for example, let's say that you are available from 9, 10, and 11 EM EST, and you send me the link to choose between those three options. Me being in Central Europe, that means that I will get like the options that you sent in EST, for example, in Central European time, translated to 3, 4, and 5 p.m. So please remember these tools and try to get familiar with them before the practical phase begins. Yes. Oh, no, not here. Here. So effective communication is actually not always about getting your ideas through. And here at Xculture, we are going to stress about it several times. So we have a list on how to communicate effectively. So first of all, and most important, be timely. We are aware that you have like different time zones, but just I would say that try to reply to your team members as soon as you can. We all have our own lives and schoolwork, volunteering, extra classes, or hobbies. However, try to respond in at most 48 hours to your team members, because in global virtual teams, no response, no timely response can actually raise some concerns for your team members, as they feel like not being able to reach you. So giving a timely response is very important. And even if you can't actually solve the task or answer the question that you were asked, please just let the other person know that you are busy or that you have something going on that makes you unable to do so. And then integrate everybody. So, I mean, the main purpose of the global virtual teams is to gather different ideas, very creative ideas. It's, crowd surfing. So integrating everybody would create a very nice atmosphere. Will feel all the members productive. So to get the best out of it, out of this project, it's the best. So to get the best out of this project, and the best experience, the best quality report, you should brainstorm and listen to all the ideas. In the brainstorming phase, there are no wrong answers. You can later discuss that as a group, but just make sure that you listen to everybody. Open-mindedness. Okay, so my way might be a good way, but it might not be the only way. So just as the previous points, integrate everybody. You might have a solution, but as I said, being in a global team, you can actually come up with many more solutions. So just be open to listen to other arguments apart from your own. And then my favorite. So I called this one working gossip. So as you said, as you might know, this project is not only about the challenge and the report that you're gonna write with your team, but also about culture exchange, about meeting new people, about making new friends. But there has to be an order to it. So something that I've learned in the last 4 or 5 years that I've had with Xculture is that you bond with really nice people easily. And at some point when the topic can go off sometimes. So just make sure that you set a clear agenda during your meetings, and that you actually finish the tasks first and focus more on the personal matters afterwards. And then people who might have limited time for this can drop off, and no one gets offended and no one feels like they are spending overtime on it. And again, since we are of different backgrounds, please never try to assume things. Don't try to assume that someone might be inactive, that someone might not work as hard as you, because reaching out and really just, asking them, you might never know the real reason. Okay, do you want to take over, Luisa?
Yes. Okay, so we have a couple of tips for how to resolve team kind of communication. And the first thing is about conflicts. And one thing about conflicts is that we often want to avoid them. and not really interact with them. And then sometimes we can like let them go on for a time and then they escalate. So a way to make sure your team communication and also your team morale is to resolve conflicts quickly. If you notice something not going well, address it. And of course, do it in a respectful manner and understanding. And for conflicts, I would say do it in team meetings because then you have a lot more context than in chats. And if a conflict starts and you talk about it quickly, it helps with understanding each other and also not making a big deal out of it. Because if you are more open about it, it's easier to resolve it. And you see, when you try to avoid things, it sometimes becomes a bigger problem later on, and people might feel misunderstood, and misunderstandings can become big things if they're not talking about. And the next one is encourage engagement. And like Bea said, with the gossip parts, it's not all about work, because especially since you're online, it's sometimes easy to feel disconnected from each other if you don't take the time to engage with each other. So it's really important to communicate often. And also, if you're, for example, stuck on something with what you're working on and want some input, you can say, oh, I did this. Does somebody know how I can improve it? And that can really help. But also engagement just about, oh, how is everybody's week going? Is somebody busy? Because if you know, oh, somebody is busy this week but has more time the next week, you can also do it like that. So if you stay engaged with each other and learn more about each other, it becomes more fun, and it becomes also easier again to work together. And this is also a way, when we go back to conflicts, if you are engaged with each other, know each other, it's also easier to solve conflicts. And the third one is transparency, which I think in online teams is even more important because you don't see each other working, right? If I do a group project at university, what we often do is we will sit in a room together and work on it. So things are very transparent. You talk with each other. You don't have this online. So it's really important that you let somebody know if you're working on it. If you want to change something, don't do it without asking. If you can't work on something when you said you would do it that day, but you can do it, let them know. Don't just assume you can work on it the next morning. It might not be an issue if you let it know, but people cannot see into your head. They don't know what you're thinking. And the fourth one, and I think we already touched on a bit with Zoom, is schedule have meetings. A large part of communication is also non-verbal, seeing each other, hearing each other's voice. In chat, it's very easy to have misunderstanding. It takes a lot longer and people can interpret things on its own. A meeting is a good way to like brainstorm together. And because you can really easily add on to each other's ideas. And as I said, because you don't really see each other in person, it's easy to become disconnected. Having meetings and seeing each other, having a face to put towards a name, that really helps our brain. Because that also helps us feel responsibility, because our brain still has a difficult time to comprehend online and virtual things opposed to physical, especially with, and when we see somebody, we feel more connected instantly, which is a weird thing in our brains. So it really helps to make use of this. And the other thing is provide consistent feedback. Your team members cannot know they're doing something wrong, or you cannot know you're doing something wrong if it's not said. If you are not happy with something or something is not going as it should, provide feedback to your teammates. Of course, do it in a respectful way, and also understand that you can have different opinions on what is the right way. But by talking about what you think of something, sharing your feelings about certain things, it really helps if you do it consistently. It doesn't help if the week before the product you're like, oh no, this is not the way it's supposed to be. But if you do it consistently, talk about it, and also accept that you sometimes can be wrong, which is also, again, do this in team meetings, like talk about what you've done so far. Do you want to change things? That really helps.
And like one thing to add to that, I mean, you might have different expectations than your team members. And if you make yourself heard, if you raise your concerns in the beginning, then maybe that would make it easier for you. So maybe you have like different understanding of what a high quality report is, on how you want to proceed to achieve that. So just make sure to give feedback and reflect on your own actions, and try to also help or guide your team members. Also, of course, without hurting their feelings. So just make sure that always do it in a polite and nice way, because feedback is actually to help you improve, and not to well, disrespect anyone in any way. Yeah, I
Yes,
just want that
totally
to.
agree with that one, Bea. And the last tip for this bit, we have more advice, is work-free conversations. As we said, are very important, and it's also important to have them. And during the beginning of the practical phase, we already have some meetings that are focused on that. So in the beginning, it's good to just have one meeting that's fully focused on getting to know yourselves. And work-free conversations, it's good to separate them. For example, it can always be good at the end. And also sometimes at the beginning when you're waiting for some people, just start with, oh, how is everybody doing? How was your day? Can sometimes really help people ease into it, and also help. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to start a meeting and what to say. If you just quickly like take 5 minutes just to, how is everybody going at the beginning? And if you want to have longer conversations, you can do that at the end. So if people need to leave, they can leave. Okay. So now we talked a lot about communication. So now we want to know about yourselves, and we will play along as well. So I have 4 categories of character traits, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. And my question for you is, which one do you relate the most with?
Did I have a question to you? Which
Yeah.
one do you relate to the most?
Okay, yeah. So for me, I think it's a 3. I'm like quite patient, relaxed, and friendly. I think that it's for me mostly. And Bea, which one is you?
Okay, I just read through all the characteristics, and I would say that most likely I classify as two,
Yes.
even though sometimes I identify as the strongest introverted person in this world. But during meetings and like just like strictly when it comes to communication, I would say that I'm very enthusiastic, outgoing, and reaching out to people. So it's two, but we have something in the chat. Okay, 3 and 4, 1 and 3. Could you guys also maybe like tell us why? You even feel free to open your microphone if you're comfortable with it, or even your cameras.
Well,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I actually like suffer from being competitive a little bit. I don't want like other teams to win or get a higher rank than us. So I just try to get us together, and I also like get the whole responsibility of the team. Like I have to do something. They're not working. They're not um like my chances or I get in teams that are, most of them are lazy or just like don't think about each other. So yeah, that makes me like competitive or intense with them. That's why it's not like and yeah, number four, it's yeah, they're related. Yeah. Um, so I don't know. I don't know if it just depends on my team or that's how I am. So,
Makes sense. How about you, Shamus? I am so sorry if I mispronounced it. Please correct me if I did. I would be sorry. But how about you?
First of all, hi, don't worry, you pronounced my name right. Actually, I consider myself as the third and the fourth categories because when I communicate with people in general or in teams, I'm usually relaxed and patient. I also like to be friendly with other people so they can be comfortable while they're talking or whatever. I'm also cautious and logical. I always think with the logical things, logical predictions, and yeah, also like to be cautious when taking decisions or when speaking with other people. So yeah, that's why I consider myself a 3 and 4.
These are some really nice explanations. Actually, now that you know details on it, I mean, yes, I'm kind of, not only the second one, but on the other hand, like, I think that I'm always the loudest one. So even though, like, I think that, like, we even had, like, decision making style test at university. And I identified as, like, very logical and, like, judgment based analytical person, but when it comes to communication, I just want to keep it in a friendly way. And in the meantime, as you might already seen, make sure that everything is in order, organized, no time is wasted, but we're still in a friendly environment. And I think that that's, relaxing for everybody and effective at the same time, but on the other hand, kind of hard to achieve. So just apply what you are, what your person is, and make the best out of it and use your qualities for the best of the group. And I mean, there's no, at least among this, there's no right or wrong. It's just that we are all different. So make sure to use your qualities to their fullest. And back to
Yes. Okay, so if Bea, if you can go to the next slide, then I will explain what I mean. And before I'm going to explain them, I'm gonna tell a little bit about the fact that these communication styles are not a 100% perfect science. And you are not necessarily one of them. You can have different tendencies. It can also depend on the situation. However, what they are helpful for is we all have some tendencies or things we fall back into, and to be aware of some of the things you do and some of the pitfalls you have for yourself, it can really help. And it can also really help considering that not everybody communicates the same way, right? And that's very important as well. Okay, so the first one is the driver, and these are people who like to take on a leadership role and take control. These are people who value directness and are likely to get straight to the point. which can be very helpful if you need to get something done quickly within team. They make sure it's organized. However, one of the pitfalls can be is that these types come over as dominant or pushy, and that people don't feel they have the room to express themselves or give input. So if you are this type, it can be very helpful, and you should also utilize this quality, but it's also important to make sure there is room for others, and you also take the time for some of the things the other personalities have, like take time for things besides work, because sometimes if you do that, that's more productive than not taking breaks and talking about these things. The next one I'm going to talk about is a complete opposite style, which is the influencer and expressive. Both terms can be used, and these are like very talkative, optimistic, like to be involved, enthusiastic, and also like sharing ideas, like to make new friends and network, and also talk a lot. And this can be also about not related things. And this can be very good because they can really make a nice vibe, that's a vibe for the team. So they get the enthusiastic up, but this can also be overwhelming sometimes, and also sometimes get a little bit lost from the task at hand.
Noisy and annoying.
Annoying. Annoying also. I try to put this positively, but yes, that's also one that can also be, but as I also said, it can also be good. So this is also a quality that can be used in moderation, and also feel the room when it's needed and when it's not.
Yeah, so why the driver can come off, as a bossy, like the driver group or style can come off as a bossy person. Like the second one, the influencer one, can come off like someone that might not seem so interested in the work that you're doing, but that might not be the actual case. Some people are just, as you can see on me, talk a lot, but again, this really depends on one's culture. So if you feel that someone just took off the topic, or they just kind of overshadow others by taking the floor too many times, just remind that person, just make them know how you feel about that. And mostly if you raise the conflict or like your feelings early on, then it can be solved easily. So
Yes.
just make sure, if you feel uncomfortable by this behavior, to signal that to the person in time.
Yes. And the other one I'm now gonna talk about seems at the beginning a bit the same, but it's very different. And that's the feeler, or the, oh no, amiable person. I think I pronounced that the best I could today. And this is somebody who really values the relationship with others, and likes also cooperating with each other, involving the whole team, and can be very agreeable, wants to go with what the rest of the team wants, which can be nice, as they do also pay attention for other teammates, make sure everybody is included. But one of the pitfalls is also they can be a bit hesitant to put their opinion in, and also avoid conflicts, which in the short term, avoiding conflict can, as I already explained, seem the best solution, but in the long time, it can lead to more conflicts. And this also, Feeler Amiable also really value the team morale and how it's going. And if there are like issues within the team morale, or there is a conflict, they can also take it personally when, and that can, for example, collide with a driver who is very direct. A feeler or amiable can take it personally and might be personally hurt when the driver meant it more work related. So it's important to realize that if you're a feeler yourself, sometimes it's good to ask, oh, if somebody is giving feedback, sometimes it might not be personally for you, it's just work to improve upon. And if you're a driver and communicating with somebody who really appreciates the feeler amiable qualities, make sure you communicate in feedback in a nice way, and sometimes can also help to say like, oh, I like what you did this, it's not personal, but just I would do it this and this differently. Make sure to be not too direct, because for example, I come from a very direct culture. The Dutch can be very direct, or as others call it, rude. And I
Honest, only honest, not rude.
well, we can go into the roots territory, and like I have learned for myself to be less direct, especially with people from other countries, than I am with Dutch people, because for Dutch people, we can sometimes be a bit rude, and we also can be straight to the point instead of first asking how is somebody doing. We just go straight into it. So that's also something I learned. And the last personality type, is the analytical. And these people are very well organized and focus on the details and make decisions and communicate based on data. And this type also really likes to listen and gather information and analyze first before speaking. So think before speak, which one of the pitfalls can also be that they are overly cautious and structured. And structure is good, but sometimes too much structure, especially if you really focus, and in conversation, if it's too task related, again, that can sometimes cause some issues. And they can also avoid expressing their feelings, and also sometimes not really listening to feelings from others because they prefer more data and will focus on that instead, and also sometimes not really think about how things will impact others. But again, as I want to say, all of these types you need in a team. You need a little bit of everything, and sometimes in a person also. And that's also, so it's not that one type is the best, because if you would have a team with only one type from all of the types, that wouldn't go very well. It's like the mix of people with different opinions, different ways of communicating. You have to work around that and work with each other and communicate openly again. So if you have an issue or with the way people communicate, you feel that it's not aligned with yours, talk about it, because that's the only way you can solve things like that. Okay, so this was it for communication styles.
Okay, so let's give you some more tips. Okay, so be aware of your body language, but this actually only works if you turn on your camera. So when you organize a smaller meetings within your team, just as we mentioned, make sure to open your camera whenever you have the possibility. And whenever you're not too shy to show your face. Acne is not a problem, everyone has them. I mean, even if you don't have acne, you may have like a bad hair day, but that's not an issue. People are interested in you most as a person and not on your shortcomings. And everyone is beautiful in their own way. So be confident, open your camera, because you might come off as more approachable if you smile to someone instead of like, if you don't have your camera on, the people can imagine of how you could look like. They might even assume, which as I said, it's not a good thing to assume things. But they can assume that your grandpa is sitting there and judging them. So just make sure to open your camera and smile if you feel like it, or just like show them how tired you are and gain some compassion. So actively listen. Actually, we had like within X culture, a guest lecture about active listening. So there are like more levels to it. I mean, even if you're present and here physically, you hear the person talking, but you might not pay attention to everything that is being said. So just make sure that you pay your full attention to that person, that you comprehend the information that she or he is trying to transmit, and that you are empathetic and, as I said, attentive. By listening to others, you can create mutual trust. And again, you can have like a more effective meeting. Because if you understand, if you listen, then you have higher chances of understanding the train of thoughts of others. And then maybe just like later when the person finished, also include your input. And about your own input, make sure that if people don't understand you in the first go, you somehow make your point clear. So don't go on side tracks and everything, but make your point clear, because we are different. We might interpret things differently. So make sure that at least when you're referring to specific things in the report, you are very specific and very clear about how you imagined it, how you're planning to do it, and that others got a similar approach, or at least that you all agree on a similar approach. Okay, also think before you speak. Yes, so I would say that I understand this like, just make sure that you do not offend people's feelings. You do not make personal comments, and just try to be clear and direct, but in a nice and friendly way. And make sure that you have like summary points, so recap everything to check if everyone's on the same page before you conclude the meeting. And as I already mentioned, key of communication is a timely response. So make sure that you check your messages, emails, and even the progress of your documents to see, and like again, give feedback on the way on the on what's going on with your report, and reply in a timely manner, even next to the thing that you are paying attention to, what's going on within the team. Okay. So at the beginning of the practical phase, which means that after you passed all your 4 module exams, you will be placed in a team. What do you have to do then when you are actually the person in the team? So even if like, I mean, you can wait a very, very short time of 1 or 2 days for someone to take the initiative, but you can also be the person to reach out first to your team members. I mean, you can even like beforehand think of an email on like presenting yourself and like inviting them to connect. So my suggestion will be, don't let things up to fate, and be that person who sends that first email, who sends that first message, who reaches out to your team members, and then decide on a platform. So we are aware that in different cultures, on different continents, on different parts of the world, people tend to use different social media platforms. So, for example, I mean, Europe is a very small continent, is that correct? But actually, like me as a Eastern European, I mean, back in Romania, Facebook is very popular at the moment. TikTok is very popular at the moment. However, here, while studying in the Netherlands, I think that I would say that Instagram and WhatsApp are the main social media platforms. Is that correct, Luisa?
Yes, that's correct.
So, and I've also heard a person who went in exchange in Singapore, and she complains that Telegram was so well known over there, and here no one uses it. So, and on the other hand, like some of these platforms might be restricted in some regions. So just make sure that all your team has access to a specific platform where you can, you know, just have a chat and like really just like direct conversation. Apart from the meetings that might come very handful and the emails that are you will periodically get from X Culture. Okay, break the ice. I think that Luis already mentioned that it's very important to keep work and the gossip, the friendly and like socializing parts very, you know, strictly apart. However, she also mentioned that it's important to break the ice. So spare 5-10 minutes in the beginning, come up with an activity and just make sure that it makes everyone feel comfortable in opening up, in sharing their opinion. So first, if you ask like, I don't know, one of my favorite icebreaker is actually like, if it's something food related. And then we had, you know, do's and don'ts about food. So are you a pineapple on pizza person or not? That might be an icebreaker question. Or what else? I mean, one very, you know, generic one already at this point would be, what is your spiritual animal? Yeah, I would say a sloth or an owl. I eat a lot during the night. Yeah. Okay, and as I said, to break the ice, you have to set up a meeting as soon as you can. And it's also a good idea that by the end of the first meeting, you kind of have a look on your clients and just start thinking about it. So make it a little bit more informal in the beginning, but start thinking about important stuff as well. The soonest, the better.
Yes.
Okay, now we have 2 questions for you. And again, feel free to open your microphone if you want to or answer in the chat. What do you think that are the greatest challenges to good communication? And what can you do to improve your communication skills? What is the conclusion? What is the main message that went through after this very short workshop?
Yes, and I want you guys to go first. We will also give our answers afterwards, but we first want to hear what you think. I said, Shamus, you are opening your mic, so go ahead.
Oh, thank you. So for the first question, I think the greatest challenge is that people being available the times we need to communicate with them. I think that will be one of the greatest challenges that faces people, whether if they're available or not. And how can I improve my communication skills? I think by communicating with people more often and like trying to find the best way to communicate with each person finding new ways to make them like comfortable talking with you. Uh, yeah, that's it.
What is your opinion, Salma?
Well, actually, the greatest like challenge is um is like the lack of active listening. Like they don't listen. Everyone wants to say or tell her or his opinion, and he believes that that's the right one. So I know we're in a team and everything, but I don't know. This urge just appears to some teammates, and okay. So how to improve it? Tell them like, can you please listen to our opinion, and then you can see yourself what's better, and you can decide, or we'll just ask them like if they listen, because listening would be like add up to them or not. Because we're working in a team, not individually, so has to listen. I don't know. Yeah.
Bea, you're muted.
Yes, I realized that. My computer realized that. These are some very commonly well met examples, some very important ones. And actually, I think that you actively listened during this workshop. So you gave perfect answers to that. I don't think that I actually have anything to add that. So yes, be open. Make sure that the other person knows what's going on. And I mean, at least for Shamus's problem, the problem raised by Shamus. Well, this might really depend on the person, but actually, when you have only, let's say, up to 4 or 5 hours difference, that maybe you can find a meeting that fits everyone. If it's more than, again, if it's 12, I would say that like being around having like a 12-hour difference among the team members is actually really nice, because let's say like it's 7 p.m. in your country and it's 7 a.m. in my country. Then I mean, if someone's very ambitious and like have the time during the weekend, you can still wake up, and the other person can still be awake. But it really depends on the circumstances, and you cannot force people to cross their personal boundaries. So what we usually suggest in these cases is to take notes of the meetings that you're having, to share the main conclusions of the meeting in a group chat, or you can even record the meeting so that the people who could not attend can watch it later. And another one, you can break down the group to smaller groups and have 2 meetings, even on the same topic, just to have all the members' insights. And again, to those who could not attend one of the meetings, you can just share the notes and the ideas that popped up during that meeting. And I mean, apart from that, you can't really solve it. You can't know for sure what's going to happen. And I think that that's the beauty of this challenge.
Yes. Yes, I totally agree. And for me, I think also one of the biggest challenges is lack of communication. So what I would say to solve that, just make sure to communicate. In X-Culture teams, we mostly see people lack of communication, over communication. I have not seen that happen often. It happens more that lack of communication is an issue. So just focus on it and do it a lot. It will really help you. And we have talked for quite a while, so I don't know if you have any questions about this topic or about X-Culture in general. You can go ahead. No questions? There are no stupid questions. We can answer everything. If you guys want to do it personal, do you guys want us to stop recording then for the questions?
Okay, I think that like people who will watch this recording can still ask us questions later.
Oh yeah.
So if you are watching this as a recording, then thank you. I hope that you gained some knowledge of it, and see you next week.